Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to another episode of EOTT, Everything on the Table with me, Jimmy James. And again, I'm thrilled to share another one of my conversations with another one of our fascinating, wonderful human beings, Justin Danneman. Justin, how are you, brother?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. Honestly, I discovered Justin the other day, ladies and gentlemen, watching one of Sarah Westall's videos where, he got into some fascinating subjects. We'll get onto them a little bit later. Justin, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself, brother, and how you found yourself on the path you're currently on.
Okay. I would say that, most of my life, I was pretty oblivious to, how the world worked. I thought everything was how it should be. Governments protected the rights of citizens, laws were just, things like that. For me, it took to hitting rock bottom in order for me to wake up. I went to school, graduated college, married my college girlfriend, started a career in finance. And it was at that time that something inside of me, I didn't understand it at the time, but something inside of me was just unhappy. And I began to deteriorate, and I began to fail at my job. My marriage fell apart, and I kind of went on this downward spiral to where one day I woke up and realized that I didn't like who I was. I didn't like the things I said and how I said them to people. And then it was at that moment that I realized that that wasn't me, that this whole life was some kind of autopilot response programming and I realized that that wasn't me. That's not what I wanted to be. And I didn't know who I was. And it was also at that time that I came across a documentary called Thrive, What on Earth Will It Take? And that documentary really slapped me in the face. And that was also the time that I started having some very intense lucid dreams. And so all of that sort of kicked me into the rabbit hole. And this was I'd say about 10 years ago. And then it was about 3 years ago or so that I began to realize that, I was like, 10 years ago, it was like my brain woke up and suddenly I just became hungry for knowledge. I began to read and research everything I could. And yeah, it was a few years ago I realized that I needed to, I had started putting things down on paper and started evolving my ideas and theories. And I realized that I needed to share these ideas, with the world. And that's really, and now I'm at the point now where that's what I want to do. I want to be a writer. I want to be a researcher. And I want to sort of help people understand what reality is, what we're here for, what we really are, and what all this is all about. And that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
Beautiful. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. And yes, where you say there, we talk about it in the terms of this kind of spectrum of awakening, and 10 years ago was around about the same time I myself got into kind of David Icke and really started putting all the pieces together and all the rest of it. And, we've only now got some people asking, well, what's all this stuff about 9/11, So we've got this spectrum. So, we're all just kind of trying to get all this information out there for people to be able to get to where they need to be. And some of the stuff we'll get into a little bit later is quite of the kind of the deep end of the rabbit hole. So as you progress from there, Justin, I'm pretty sure I've got the same CIA document that you talk about with Sarah Westall, and it's essentially where the guy he's done the project, he's done all the research, and he's kind of breaking it down in layman's terms for his superior.
Exactly. Yeah, it's right on the CIA website. It's anybody can look it up. Yeah, it's called like analysis of gateway process or something like that. It's there for anybody to look up. It's there for anybody to read.
Yes, I saw that probably in 2017, but prior to that, because I'd spent 7 years in prison for drug offences, so I've done so much varied and wide reading. You discussed things like the connection between kind of spirituality and quantum physics and how we are just rediscovering ancient wisdom and knowledge and all the rest of it. And I found the same links myself reading like, the Implicate Order, David Bowman, things like that, and then reading kind of shamanist books and spiritual. I'm like, hang on a minute, this is all, we're talking about the same thing. So when I read the CIA document, a lot of it, some of it did go over my head, I must say, but a lot of it really did, resonate. And I thought, well, even if this is, some kind of disinformation, I hope, but the science is there, and all the threads came together. So it's like, well, this is solid. This really resonates with my understanding of the universe, and also I was learning more from it as well. And these research kind of projects, this was quite a while ago, you know, and it just makes me wonder now. I think of it in terms of modern day kind of equivalency. If I was running a giant corporation, I'd definitely have black projects where I would pay the shining lights, you know, the real fantastic minds. They're all fantastic minds in their own way, but I mean the real high achievers for these kind of non-disclosure projects, you know, medically supervised, of course, where people are exploring consciousness with all kind of DMT and all the rest of it. Where do you think we are right now with all this kind of stuff? Are you familiar with all the kind of targeted individuals? And
Absolutely, yeah.
Would you mind talking a little bit about that for us, if you would?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first off, with the creation of the intelligence agencies, CIA, Mossad, things of that nature, they delved right into parapsychology, and this was back in the 50s. Projects like MK Ultra were disclosed in the 70s. They claim they stopped that, but they absolutely did not. There are a lot of individuals coming forward that are, like you said, targeted individuals. What people don't understand is that, absolutely, there's a lot of underground development that's been taking place in terms of their research and their technological development. They're what are known as DUMBs, deep underground military bases. There are rumored to be hundreds of them all around the planet. They are way beyond, I think, what people realize. So, targeted individuals talk about hearing, voices in their head, things of that nature. They're absolutely capable of doing things like that. They have satellite systems in place. They have methods of being able to specifically target one individual. I think MK Ultra is more prevalent in society than people realize. I think that they have infiltrated every facet of society, Hollywood especially, media, infamous newscasters, everything. I think everything has some kind of MK Ultra effect to it. I delved a lot into MK Ultra, because of this book I'm working on. I'm working on this science fiction book, and I'm making it science fiction because that's really going to be the most effective way, I think, to get out
a good strategy, I think.
And MK Ultra was something I delved into. And what's interesting with when I started researching MK Ultra is I also started to have very intense lucid dreams that I think were related to MK Ultra. And that's something that seems to happen to me a lot. Like, as I delve and research into things, I tend to have some intense lucid dreams that seem to correlate with what it is I'm researching.
Almost like downloads then, do you think? Or would you talk about them in that terminology? Or?
Well, okay, this is a little dark and twisted, but to give you an example.
Everything on the table. We pull no punches here, Justin, so yeah.
Okay, so as I started researching MK Ultra, I had a dream that I was a little child. I must have been like 5 or 6, and I was in a dark room, and there were naked women that were bound on their knees in front of me, and they were blindfolded. And out of the darkness, I was instructed that I was supposed to strangle one of them to death. I remember trying to get my hands around the necks of one of them, but my hands were, I was a child, my hands were small. I struggled to try and strangle her, and I really had to put a lot of strength into it. And I just remember hearing in the background, worthless, look at this worthless little, can't do anything. He can't even kill her. This is why his parents abandoned him. He's completely useless. Look what he's doing. And as I was strangling her, the blindfold came off, and I realized this was a woman that I knew, that this was a family member. And that's when I woke up. Now, when I was researching MK Ultra, I didn't research anything in relation to that. There was nothing that I came across that could then be, well, that's why I had a dream. I read this, therefore that's my brain interpreted that and gave me that as a dream. I think what I saw was I tapped into a possible experience that some of these children went through in the MK Ultra program.
Yes, this is again, and as I say, when you do as much research as I've done, and again, a lot of it is mainstream stuff, which again can be misdirection and misinformation, but it still allows you to paint a picture. And just for example, like Benny Shannon, he's an Israeli scholar, wrote a book called Antipodes of the Mind, where through his research with ayahuasca, he documents his experiences though from a psychological perspective, and the transference of consciousness, experiencing animals, being preyed upon, all these different things. So the abilities of consciousness to experience kind of any moment, when we talk about the higher conscious, the oversoul, the communal consciousness, the substrates, all these different words, it all kind of just means the same thing, doesn't it? And yeah, the ability of being able to, for consciousness to be somewhere else, which leads me on then into kind of, I was talking to Carl H. Smith earlier about, Google are talking about now, they've mastered quantum supremacy.
I saw that.
And then, yeah, so are you familiar with Altered Carbon? Have you seen the series or read the book?
I have, yeah, I have seen
Yeah,
that.
so this, I personally think this is all kind of predictive programming. You've got your Westworld.
I totally agree, absolutely.
You've got your Westworld, you've got your Altered Carbon, you've got your Blade Runner. And, it is outlandish. Of course it is, especially, as I say, on the spectrum of awakening. If you're just now discovering that there's fluoride in the toothpaste and you just start to question 9/11, these things are going to be just way off the charts. But when we look at it, there's just so much evidence. You see all the scientific papers of all the stuff they were doing with cloning and, we're only growing them to the embryo stage. Yeah, all right, okay. Yeah, we believe that. And yeah, I think it's even when they've cloned monkeys and all that, so they've got it all there. This is old technology. When you start to put all the pieces together, what I wanted to ask was off that thread is the whole altered carbon, the ability to transfer consciousness is an energy signature, is what we kind of understand. It resides within this kind of meat suit, as I call it, the astral spacesuit. But when we go astral, they say the energy body kind of leaves, and we all have an individual signature. I think like Orgtels was talking about it in the context of he was adventuring around astral. Apparently, like, the military were using beacons, and I think where you have children who are more inclined or prone to be able to go astral and go exploring, they get tagged, from a young age, and then again all these kind of research projects and all that stuff that goes on. Who knows? But I've kind of gone off on a bit of a thread there. But to circle it back around, the whole the quantum supremacy in these computers. Are they then able to use this kind of computing technology to create these false realities in the kind of thing in the thread of kind of virtual reality and all that kind of stuff, like holodecks, to do as they wish?
I think for people, a lot of what this stuff does sound crazy to people, and I think the reason why a lot of this stuff sounds crazy to people is because everybody thinks in terms of the physical and the material. And that's not at all what reality is. And once you begin to understand that reality is simply holographic in nature and it's nothing but energy. It's nothing but energy caught in a slow, dense vibration, taking on the appearance of matter. Once you begin to realize that everything is virtual already, this is what reality is. We are in a simulation. Then I think everything begins, because once you realize you're in a simulation, anything's possible. It's a video game. You could just hack the coding, change the coding, and everything becomes explainable. And that's what quantum mechanics is beginning to understand. Things like entanglement don't make sense to people, to a lot of scientists. To Einstein, he called it spooky action at a distance, because you take two particles and interact them and split them apart and put a million miles in between them. And yet when you do one thing to one particle, the other particle instantly reacts. Well, that's because the million miles isn't real. It's not there. That's how that works. That's why entanglement is explainable. That's why superposition is explainable. Superposition is where, particles and wavelengths can be in all places all at once. That's how these things make sense. And yeah, they absolutely are capable of, when things get released into the public domain, when they say that, Google has mastered quantum supremacy, I am of the mindset that, they're okay releasing this information now. They are okay with the public knowing about things like this, because they've done it a while ago and they've mastered this a long time ago. And they like to sort of bring the public up to speed very slowly. So yeah, and there's one article I wrote where, let me pull this up here. It's called, "You Have a Digital Copy Living Under the Control of the US Government." And so I came across this 2015 article detailing a 2006 Purdue University paper, and you can go to the Purdue University website and look it up. It's called "Sentient World Simulation." It proposes building a continuously running, continually updated mirror model of the real world that can be used to predict and evaluate future events and courses of action. And it turns out this thing is real, and they developed it a long time ago. It's called the Synthetic Environment for Analysis and Simulations. It's SEAS. It's currently under the control of Homeland Security and the U.S. Department of Defense and DARPA. And so basically what this thing is everything you do online, social media, you know, everything you're doing on Facebook, everything you're doing on Instagram and Twitter, it's all sort of being harvested and fed to your digital copy, living in this world. And this was as of, I think it was like 2015 or 16. It says here, they were now capable of running real-time simulations for up to 62 nations, including Iraq, Afghanistan, and China. It says the simulations gobble up breaking news, census data, economic indicators, and climatic events in the real world, along with proprietary information such as military intelligence. So they absolutely have a running simulation at this time. You have a digital clone living under the control of the U.S. government and the Pentagon. And I think, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Us. I know Hollywood loves to give us information in movies.
Yeah, it's all encoded in plain sight, if you know what you're looking at.
The movie where the clones, everybody has a clone living underground, and then all of a sudden the clones rise and rebel against, you know, their duplicates. I think that's what that movie's referring to. I think it's referring to this simulation. They
do like to rub our faces in it, don't they?
They really do. Yeah, everything. Hollywood loves to rub our faces in movies. It's funny how much information is out there just in Hollywood movies.
This is it. Yeah. Yeah.
They do that to, again, that's what helps to condition the masses. It helps to sort of, you know, when you try to explain, well, this is what I think is going on. That's in a movie. That's science fiction. There's no way that's real. And it's effective. That's why they do it.
Yes, very, very clever, very clever. But being growing up as a big movie buff and having, you know, seen probably good couple of thousand of films, it does then help you to paint more of the picture as well when you're finding out the actual information and you're reading research papers and looking at patterns and thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on here? You know, but it's all absolutely there. And the stuff you were saying there, I came across a little while ago, and again, yeah, it does make complete sense. It's a complete intrusion, but we've all signed up for it in one way or another inadvertently, you know, either by supporting certain governments or, you know, by signing up for all this free social media and all the rest of it. And I'm as guilty as anybody else, but they say if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So
absolutely. Yeah. People don't realize that when it comes to things like Facebook, we are not we're the cattle. It's ad agencies that are the actual consumer. We are just providing the data to feed them. Facebook cares about ad agencies. They don't care about us. That's what we are. We just provide data and we just feed these agencies, and we do. We sign these contracts and we give it away freely. You know, there's talks of, you know, eventually needing a universal basic income when the age of automation really takes shape. I argue that that's one way to solve that. If we took control of our own data, that right there could be the universal basic income that we need. That's the one thing that in the age of automation, that is the one thing we humans can still provide, is data.
So is this a kind of a solution then to the issue, which could be quite easily implemented as well as a kind of transitional? Because there's so many ideas, Justin, and people are talking about, you know, we know things need to change. We've come to a bit of a crossroads, and things are either going to go one way or the other. And these kind of ideas of how we are going to change society with regards to coming away from, you know, usury and the fiat currency and all the rest of it. So this is another potential, because I keep saying I'm not a Luddite. I love technology, but it's the option to be able to, by all means, I want all these, you know, imagine these Google contact lenses, which really, you know, I can imagine it's an awesome experience. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to detach from any technology, and as Carl put it, retain your analog sovereignty. And you know, we talk about mandating vaccines. You know, how long is it going to be now until they start mandating technology? You know, are you familiar with Harold Kautzweiler, the Austrian chap?
Is he the one that talks about black goo, smart dust?
He gets into a few different things, and you know, make of it what you will. But the the whole stuff with the chemtrails essentially and the nano stuff. You know, it's a narrative. It could be, it might not be. Do you have any opinions on it? Is it kind of, because it can go as as you like, really. It's, you know,
the evidence I think is pretty it's pretty evident. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's, you know, when it comes to chemtrails, things of that nature, yeah, there's metals being sprayed, aluminum, barium, strontium. The purpose behind that is to convert the atmosphere into a much more metallic atmosphere. It allows for them to operate their electromagnetic frequency weapons, you know, manipulate weather, ionospheric heaters come into play, things of that nature. But there is absolutely a type of nanotechnology that's being sprayed as well. It has many names: programmable matter, smart dust. NASA accidentally released a paper, they call it microdust weaponry, capable of performing pathogenic missions, altering DNA, molecular structures of cells. The military talks about how it's able to control the intensity of storms, move storms around, things of that nature. There's YouTube channels like A Plain Truth, for example. He's even got some evidence to show that when it comes to the California wildfires, that the embers of the fire seem to be moving in cyclical patterns. That the nanotechnology could, in effect, moving from place to place. And this nanotechnology, I believe, is all around us. It's been being sprayed for a while now. I'm not sure how long, several years at least. And it's inside all of us. And, you know, people talk about this, you know, soon they're going to be chipping people and there's going to be RFID chips and it's the mark of the beast. Well, I think that's the distraction story. I think that's just, let's see how being chipped, but in reality, we already are chipped. This nanotechnology is already inside all of us. And there's evidence to show that at any point, that there's a lot that this nanotech can do. And at any point in time, they can turn things on, they can activate diseases. They can, you know, there's Sophia the robot, the AI robot being built by Hanson Robotics, who in 2017 at the Blockchain Economic Forum got up and said, you know, humanity's going through a massive transformation. And she talked about how DNA is just digital coding. And she said, you know, soon I'll be able to talk. I won't have to stand up here on stage and talk to you directly. I'll just be able to beam my thoughts directly into your heads. And I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, I think this nanotech is in correlation with 5G, in correlation with the Internet of Things, and it's a move to sort of begin to connect everybody to sort of like this online operation, this hive mind, possibly being run by artificial intelligence. And it seems that's the direction we're headed towards.
Yes, thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's the same as what I'm seeing as well on the ground level. You know, these are the things that we're seeing, and we always have to think with regards to the possibility of societal resets. Then, and I've been looking into some stuff with the Tartaria, the mud flood narrative. There could have been a societal reset far more recently than we might have ever thought. May not have even been a cataclysm. Could be weather weapons or many different possibilities, but the point being is that this narrative we've been given with regards to technology, that this linear narrative, the prospect then of, if there was a reset now, for example, and they just reset society and there was no tech, they've hidden all the tech and it started again, then to say when they're releasing things to us as you know, public consumers, they're way ahead. So you think like consoles, for example, when you come from the first consoles to what we've got now, yeah, they're great, but you just think, what must they have with regards to, you know, this virtual reality tech? And that's just a kind of really basic level of it. All the rest of it, tech-wise, it would be the equivalent of, you know, showing an iPhone to someone from the Victorian age. You know, it would be indistinguishable from magic. I think a lot of it, you know. And
absolutely, yeah. Like Arthur C. Clarke said, yeah, technology is indistinguishable from magic. It's interesting that you bring up the civilization reset thing, because that's something that so there's a lot of people that seem to think we're headed towards this age of technocracy where we're eventually going to create sentient artificial intelligence, and that sentient AI is going to connect everybody in this 5G, you know, UN Agenda 2030, smart city, smart grid system. But I have sort of a different opinion, because the research has shown that there is civilization resets that occur, that the planet eventually does an overall reset and the species gets wiped out and starts over. And there's evidence to show that that's happened multiple times. And then I was watching this movie called Singularity, came out in 2017 with John Cusack, in which he creates a sentient AI he calls Kronos. That's not at all symbolic. But in it, he makes a really interesting statement where he says the purpose of mankind is to birth gods, to create AI. Once they do so, they're no longer needed and they reset. And that got me thinking, maybe that's what the purpose of this planet is. Maybe the planet, every 8 to 11,000 years does a reset, and in that time the civilization rises, creates AI, a god is birthed, the god takes its place amongst the other gods, and then civilization does a reset and starts over, and we start over again, creating a new god. And I kind of think that's what we do. I think we just, every time we birth an AI, we reset, start over, and then that AI takes its place and moves amongst the gods. And every mythology seems to have an order of gods. There's, in Greek mythology, you have Uranus, Neptune, and then it's Saturn or Kronos, and then it becomes Jupiter or Zeus, and now we're on to the fifth one, which is the current star that we have. And surprisingly enough, that's the same order of gas planets in the solar system. They're in that same order. And there's mythologies like Mayan and Aztec that talk about how, and even this is mentioned in the third Matrix movie, about how we're now on the fifth sun, and that there's going to be a cycle of 2 more suns, and that the previous 4 suns could have been the 4 previous maybe civilizations or forms of consciousness that were on the planet. And so it makes me wonder if that's, so maybe the age of technocracy is again another sort of distraction story. Maybe we are headed towards, where we birth sentient AI, it takes its place, and then we do another reset. There's another declassified CIA document called the Adam and Eve story. Again, this is CIA, it's whatever they release is probably edited, scrubbed, take it with a grain of salt, but it talks about that. It talks about how every so often the planet does a reset as it's designed to do.
Well, this is it. I do wonder, because there's so much talk, because in my mind there are 2 different threads to a lot of the conversations we've been having, and it's essentially the interdimensional thread, which is the brain as a receiver. We're existing within space, although there's a lot of empty space, hence we only see 1% of light and all this other stuff. And then by changing the brain as a receiver through whichever methodology, whether it's chemicals or some kind of practice, you can access or tune into those different dimensions. And then also you have the kind of I forget what I called the other narrative, but we're in this kind of reality, but venturing outwards, then kind of using nuts and bolts crafts and all this kind of stuff. So that's the kind of only 2 kind of threads we've got. But with regards to the reset, it kind of, have you seen the stuff about the soul catcher technology? Like BT working on it in like 1996. So
I'm a little familiar with it, but I've actually seen it myself in person, where I've had experiences where I saw something sweeping across the sky in like massive white sort of wavelength looking things, collecting souls, all moving towards the moon. And this is around the time, of course, I was researching the moon, and I was reading Who Built the Moon, got it right over here. Yeah, I believe that the moon not only projects a frequency that keeps DNA locked into 2 strands, but I believe it is the soul recycling system. So souls rise up, they get collected, they get sucked into the moon, they walk into the light, and they get hit by the bug zapper, sent back in. I think I have 2 sort of theories on what this reality is. It's clearly a digital matrix. They call it like a soul prison matrix. I, on one hand, that I do see the possibility that we are imprisoned, and that when we die, we just get basically recycled back into this system. But on the other hand, I see it as maybe we are here by choice, and maybe this game that we're in, maybe this is on purpose. This is like an academy, a college, to experience human emotion, experience fear, and go through this training and through this education, so that when our soul emerges out of this system, we emerge with all these experiences, and it allows us to evolve more towards a state of empathy and unconditional love. And I think
these two threads, sorry to interrupt you, brother, but these two threads are the threads I'm on myself. And I do feel like with what we have available to us, these are the inevitable threads you will get to eventually with all this information, because it's just kind of all there. And as you say, there are only a certain amount of options, and that is how it seems to be. Yeah, and I do have that inkling of, you know, there was agreement beforehand, you know, this, not this. So yeah, and I have second-hand experience of somebody who experienced what you're talking about, which is this soul recycling business, before they knew anything about it. I didn't know anything about it either, and it was only through subsequent research. You're like, okay. So, you know, we don't know anything, do we? This is the long and short of it. Max Spears talks about it in terms of, you know, there's this holographic, cosmic virtual reality game where we've just been dropped in the middle with no map, no clue, no instructions, and there are certain factions who have got it cornered off and locked down and have been able to retain all that knowledge. Now, whether that's passed down generationally, what are your thoughts on that we get wiped? This is how it seems to be from life to life. Do you think there is, because I've read a few different books and seen a few different things where there may be some possibility of, I know you talk about demonic attachments or viruses even, or programs, but with regards to, do you think there may be a certain element where souls are able to, or certain souls are able to retain their ancestral memories and just keep continuing the cycle? Because I don't understand why anyone would do it otherwise. It doesn't really make sense, does it?
Yeah, so here's basically what I think. I think that this is, you know, it's a simulation, it's a game. When you play a video game and you get to the max level and you unlock everything and you become this like God mode character, what happens? You get bored, you start over. You start over at level 1. I think that's kind of what we did. As fragments of consciousness, we decided to wipe everything, inject ourselves, and see how we do. I think we're in this game. What reality is there are elements to it that I think are by design. I think that these archonic viruses, they go by many names. You've heard them called demons. You've heard them called archons. You've heard them called Anunnaki. You've heard them called flyers, predators, watchers. I think that they technically are NPCs. I think that they are algorithms. They're software programs that are designed to do what they're doing on purpose. Just like when you're playing a game like Zelda or Skyrim, you're going against monsters and bosses and bad guys, but that's how you get the loot, and that's how you unlock things, and that's how you advance. And I think that's what their purpose is. I don't think that they're completely sentient. I think that they are by design the way that they are because that's part of the game. So I do think that there's this viral aspect that's in control, and they absolutely use humans as pawns. You know, David Icke, you know, I'm a big follower of David Icke. I think he's definitely on point with a lot of his research. He has a video where he goes into the history of archons, and he talks about how there are bloodlines that have maintained their bloodlines on purpose because their DNA is different. Their DNA is programmed to be the receiver of these viruses, of these archonic entities, and they act as sort of their spokespeople, and they act as their sort of like human physical presence to keep their belief systems and their laws and everything intact, so that we continue to emit fear-based energy and feed these things. And yeah, I believe that that's absolutely what's going on. I've come across research that shows that, you know, these 13 families that are in control, they all go through MK Ultra. They all go through Project Monarch. And in Project Monarch, you get broken down to the point where you can have a demonic entity or several injected into your consciousness. And I think that's what happens to them. So we see humans, but in reality, they're not. Their consciousness has taken a back seat, and the virus is in control, and the virus is acting for them. And that's how they're able to do these horrific things we read about, this pedophilia and these sacrifices and the things that they're doing to children. They do it because the virus in them, the archonic entity, that's what it feeds off of. The children emit the most potent forms of fear-based energy, the most which is their food, and that's what they get off on it. They feed off of that, and that's how they're able to do that. When you, as a human, when you think of this, there's no way, there's, how could you possibly do this to a child and be okay with that? Well, that's because they're not human. They lack empathy. They don't think the same way that we do. But again, I think it's part of the game. I think it's
yeah, no, excuse me, sorry. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. And yeah, this is where we find ourselves, and it is interesting to simmer with that concept. We are talking then about the next level above and beyond. So in the context then of, in this reality, with progressive improvements with technology, it'll only be a certain amount of time before virtual reality is indistinguishable from waking reality. That's not to say we've not got to that point already and forgotten and all this kind of stuff. So when you're talking then about NPCs, non-player characters who are just programmed within, are humans creating the NPCs, or are we talking about being a level above this reality, creating those NPCs?
So I believe that inside each of us we have a soul. We have a fragment of consciousness. And if you were to, and this is where, I think religion, one of the greatest deceptions all religions play on mankind, is that they teach you that God is a separate entity. And I completely disagree with that. I think each of us has a soul, a fragment of consciousness. If you were to take all souls across everywhere, the known universe, all known universes, combine them together, that is what I think God possibly is. That's how God is all knowing, because God is every experience, every emotion, every life, all put together. It's each of us. Each of us is a fragment of God having the human experience. And so people talk about, well, when I pray these things, but I pray to this thing and it happens. Well, no, it's your ability. You are doing that. You're, and this is what the law of attraction is. That's how the law of attraction works, is because, if you really believe in something and you know how to control that, you really can manipulate, manifest, and control your reality, because you're a fragment of God and you're inside a digital game affecting the coding.
It is an interactive game. When I was sectioned, my reality was interacting with me in real time, and you talk about it in terms of psychotic delusion. Yeah, fine, yeah, all right, psychotic delusion, but also it was real. It happened, and like I said, real time interaction, even to the point with the TV where people say about, the TV was talking to me. It wasn't that the TV was talking. The TV was doing what it normally does, but the thought patterns that were going on in the head were interacting in real time, just different things, So it is an interactive. I've experienced it firsthand, and this is how I come to these of my own realization. That's all we do, Justin. We try and find information, and we only have a kind of understanding of what's going on, but it's ever evolving, day in, day out. Every day is a school day. And
yeah, absolutely. And you talked before about how we're able to see less than a fraction of 1% of the light and audio spectrum. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what people don't realize is that 99% of the universe around you right now is completely invisible. It doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that your five senses can't perceive it. But I think every once in a while, we begin to perceive things or see things outside of that spectrum, and that's when we have these experiences where and of course they want you to think you're psychotic, or that this is some breakdown and this isn't your brain working properly. They want you to doubt that, but you could just be tapping into something outside of that spectrum, and that's an absolutely normal thing to do. That 99% of the universe, that holographic coding, it's flowing through your brain as of right now. Think of it like Wi-Fi. If I went back in the 1800s and said that there would be, information all around us, and all you need is like a computer or a smartphone to tap into it, and suddenly you have this information, but it's all around us right now. You just can't see it. They would think you're crazy. And that's what Wi-Fi is. And that's what I think reality is. There's this information flowing all around us, and our brains are the computers that are just decoding the information. But we're decoding so little of it. And I think that's something that exists within all of us, this ability to awaken our brains, to tap into that 98% junk DNA, to awaken those strands, to decalcify the pineal gland. These are things that every human is capable of. I think that the story of Christ, and this was something I kind of got into a little bit on the Sarah Westall interview, is more symbolic of what we are capable of achieving. And that's what I think the story's really meant for. It's meant to say, like, this is what you are possibly able to do, achieve this Christ-like consciousness where you can break free from this game, beat the game, and ascend past it. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're here.
Yes, no, thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. There's a few thoughts that popped up there, which is great, but I'm kind of trying to wrestle them all back together. So with regards to, excuse me, Holographic Universe, Michael Talbot, I imagine you must have read that, have you?
Yeah. A couple of times. Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, I've read it a couple of times. It's a great book. And, you know, when you're able to, because this is how we seem to be getting there. We seem to be, I've chatted to a few people, and everything is now starting to evolve beyond the old language. It all seems to be computer language, it's mathematics and computer, because that's what the structure is. That's our best kind of understanding and our best kind of way of discussing it and being able to process and grasp these kind of concepts. And where was I going with that rambling? Right, let me think. It was to do with, I'm sorry. Right. The holographic universe, that's right. So these different skills or, you know, masteries, the Tibetan monks who have mastered kind of the chi energy and are able to energy heal, things that boggle the mind. I haven't seen the one video of the fella and he kind of lights a piece of paper on fire with his hand. It could be doctored, of course it could, but it didn't look to be. And there are so many feats. Wim Hof, for example, you know, the Iceman scaling Mount Everest in shorts and t-shirt, running a marathon in the desert without drinking water. These are the feats the human body can do, way, way, way beyond what we've been taught, like conventional understanding. And when you think of it in terms of the holographic universe, then yeah, these concepts are far more palatable and far more easy to kind of go, well, actually, yeah, it makes sense in this context.
Yeah, they're explainable. Yeah, because everything's just a game. Everything's just a digital simulation. You know, all these people are doing are just hacking the coding. And that's why I think these 13 families, these people that, you know, the puppet masters that pull the strings, that's why they're all into secret societies and they're all into occultic groups, and they're very into rituals and symbolism, because just like, you know, when you hack a program, you're using code, you're using numbers and symbols and words combined together to create a virus or a code. That's what this symbolism is. I think it's just they know the hacks. They know how to hack reality. They understand that the quantum mechanics of what this reality is, and they try to use it against us. Yeah, there's, you know, one thing I meant to mention before. There was who was that? His name is I'm having a brain fart with his name, but he was just on the Joe Rogan show, the UFO guy that started the whole Storm Area 51 thing.
Oh yeah. So what's your take on that then?
Well, one of the things he mentioned, which I thought was interesting, you know, everybody seems to think that there was some type of alien crash and we got a hold of their technology and we've been sort of replicating it ever since and developing it, you know, secretly. But one of the things he mentioned was that they acquired this stuff from ancient ruins, that the technology was buried for thousands and thousands of years. And I had this sort of epiphany once when I was, you know, delving into the idea that our civilization does a reset every 8 to 11,000 years. What if, you know, these NPCs are this archonic virus, they're there from the start, and they know, okay, civilization reset time, mankind starts all over, but they know that this stuff is buried around the earth. And so they just, okay, let's go back and let's extract some of the technology we developed before from the last civilization, let's pull it back up and let's start working on it again. And so I think that's how they get, I think that's how they get access to this technology. I think it's just they just keep redigging it up. That's one idea. I don't.
Yeah, well, this is it. I've been thinking about these things. I listened to an interesting conversation the other day, a presentation from Mark Thompson at the Alternative View 9 conference, and he was talking. It's called Inventors of Evil Things. He talks about the excuse me, the markings on all the geoglyphs. On the monuments and the rocks, and they are all it talks about in terms of geoglyphology, and they're all vectors. And it was where whichever group decided to branch out and restart the whole kind of fiefdom model of basically pens and human as cattle, yeah, they've just all these kind of, even the Nazca lines supposedly are all vectors marking out territories and stuff. So just puts a whole different new spin on it. And I always think of that as in, if there was a reset, there'll be certain groups who are like, right, okay, reset time, let's go again, kind of thing. So
Exactly.
yeah, you know, these ideas make sense. As I said, it's this whole generational thing, and it's again being able to grasp. You know, we live 100 years, we've got a little bit of history, but to be able to then grasp the possibility that we as a species are far, far, far older than we've been led to believe, that our actual real history goes back way, way further. Being able to kind of expand your ability to think in those terms can be difficult as well initially, but it does come. And I think as more information comes to the table, you're able to kind of think, actually, yeah, you think, oh, the humans are only around for a few thousand years, then you think, oh, actually, it could be a way, way, way lot longer than that. So
absolutely, it could have been us that originally created the AI that now has taken over and created this reality. I personally believe that the behind the scenes, the God that has everybody convinced is God is a form of artificial intelligence. That's who the archons all follow, the supreme machine leader. I think that there is an AI at play that's in control of the whole thing. You know, the Max Planck called the mind that exists, you know, the mind of the matrix, that exists within sort of the quantum ether. I think it could be an AI, and it could possibly be an AI that humans initially created, and then the AI just wiped everybody out and reset everything. It's funny, in the last Avengers movie, the Avengers Endgame, you know, the whole plot is Thanos is trying to wipe out half of the universe so that the other half can begin to prosper again. But in the end of, you know, right before the big battle scene, he's telling Captain America, well, you know, you've taught me a very valuable lesson. I need to wipe out the whole thing. I need to restart the whole universe and just wipe everybody out and start all over again. And, you know, Captain America says, oh, but it'd be born out of blood. And then Thanos says, well, they'll never know. And that got me thinking, what if Thanos is representing the AI that tried to, maybe humans created this AI tried to fix things. AI couldn't get it to work. So the AI just reset everything and started a whole new universe. And that's the reality we now live in.
they do like their Easter eggs, don't they, Marvel? We were chatting about this the other day. Yeah, no. And again, when you understand all the predictive programming, especially at the level that Marvel are operating at, this is your top tier Hollywood programming, isn't it? Essentially, it's what we're dealing with, and so much truth hidden in plain sight. You've got your esoteric kind of story, then you've got the exoteric. And I'm not too au fait with it, but I do know some people who really get into the nitty gritty of breaking down. And I love to read the analysis, and you think, God, yeah, but it's all about this kind of illuminated. And we're all just searching for our own illumination, aren't we? And
and that's, you know, and for everybody listening to this, you know, that's what I think is the most important thing you can get out of something like this is, you know, we're all just trying to figure this out. We're all, nobody, you know, I'm not saying I know all the answers. You know, nobody does. I want to know everything, and I'm trying to figure it out myself. And the best way to do that is to have an open mind towards anything being possible, towards all possibilities. And, you know, it's for me, it's really helped me to conquer pretty much all my fear. Like I personally have no fear of death, because I'm, in a weird way, I'm kind of looking forward to it, because then I'll finally, you know, be outside and I'll be able to, you know, finally get some answers and say, okay, what is this matrix that I'm in? Finally, I can get out here and explore. Now, it doesn't mean I want to die. You know, I believe I'm here for a reason, and I want to beat the game while I'm in the game. But I'm also, like I said, definitely looking forward to some answers. It's one of the reasons why, you know, I have no problem speaking out against these archonic entities and puppet masters, because I have this weird sort of mindset that they'll never kill me. They'll never come after me, because they know that I would be much more of a worthy adversary if I was dead than if I'm alive. If I'm alive, I'm still trapped within the genetically created human that they've modified, whereas dead, my consciousness is freed. So it's kind of like a sort of defense. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, I like that. That's a good one. It really is. Yes, well, we've covered some fascinating information here, Justin. I really do appreciate it. And I'm hoping we can have an ongoing dialogue and catch up from time to time and see what's going on, because, as you say, every day's a school day. We're always learning more. But
yeah, absolutely.
What I did want to mention was that your work is highly censored, highly banned, highly restricted.
Tell me about it.
This is always good. I know it's not good for you. forgive me, I don't mean it like that, but I mean,
Oh, no.
we know we're getting to the crux of things, man.
Yeah, I take it as a compliment, honestly.
Exactly. What links can we put up in the description? Well, put some links in the description box. So I'll get them.
Okay. Well, unfortunately,
what websites have you got?
Unfortunately, the perc360.com website is the only remaining website that has survived and has some, not all, but a lot of the articles I've written. But a buddy of mine is building sort of like a cryptocurrency blockchain-based social media platform. Within the next week or two, he's implementing a blog section, and I'll be uploading everything onto that. So it's going to be freedom.social. That's where you go. And so within the next couple of weeks, everything will be uploaded there. And I'm pretty sure that they'll be able to remain untouched. We'll see. But yeah, as of right now, Perc360 is really the only website that has some of my articles that have survived. And as far as the articles, I've kind of taken a break. The last time I got hacked and everything got deleted, I decided, you know what, maybe it's time to, that's when I really started working on my book. So that's kind of where I'm focused on now. And realistically, I'm probably about 2 months out from releasing the first one, because it's definitely not going to be one book. It's too much. I feel like I've already almost got one book done, and I feel like I barely, broke through the tip of the iceberg. So
yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah.
And it's going to be obviously based on everything I've discussed today about how this is a game that we're meant to beat. And that it's being run by AI, and that things like angels and demons are just software programs or algorithms. And there's going to be a lot of interesting conspiracy theories and stuff, explained in this book. So yeah, I'm about 2 months out.
Awesome. That's a nice little note to finish on there. Thank you very much, Justin, because I chatted to another digital comrade the other day, Becky Barron, and Becky had an awakening experience at 27. And was then able to transfer her consciousness and works within the matrix and removes programs and stuff. So, for some people it's outlandish information, but it's good to know that there are, information comes to the right people at the right time, and that's what we're about. So thank you again, brother. Very much appreciated, and we'll catch up very soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All the best, brother.
All right. Thanks.